Um, in case you don't know, I love hearing about near-death experiences. You know, where somebody dies and then they resuscitate them. And this last week, I came upon what I consider just a really interesting story about this woman who they had filmed it. She tells about her life, and in her life, she actually was in a concentration camp, and she survives the concentration camp, but just such a hard life. She, after the concentration camp, she had kind of this almost anger towards God, because where was God in the concentration camp? And then she's freed, and then she's riding her bike one day, and she gets hit by a truck. And I mean, wow, what terrible luck. And goes to the hospital, and she dies, but is resuscitated. And she has one of these near-death experiences. And I have to be honest, only because I'm a very critical person, I think not a lot, but some people who have these near-death experiences, I think is a bunch of bologna sandwich. I think I really do, just looking for attention. But she has the experience that is like all the others, where she goes through the dark tunnel. At the end of the tunnel, there's this bright light, and in front of the bright light, she said she's never felt such love before. And she said, God is pure love and wisdom. And in front of the light, her life unfolds, and she gets to see her entire life and feel everything. And in front of the light, she learns a couple things. And one is, throughout her entire life, God always surrounded her with love. Her entire life was surrounded by love, the love of God, but she's the one who was blind to it. So when she says, well, where were you in this concentration camp? God was always there. God had always surrounded her life with great love. She just didn't notice it. And in front of the light, she also learns where the light says, people love to the best that they've learned. And so she's resuscitated, she comes back, and when she comes back, and this is the part I think is amazing, she comes back and she says, now that she saw, God, and who is pure love and wisdom, she sees love everywhere. She sees the presence of God everywhere. Except what irritates her now is that she hears people's conversations and what they care about, and she says, most people, what they talk about is just silliness. What they're concerned about are things of no substance, that they're just in this relationship with the silliness of life. And the love of God surrounds them everywhere. And she just remembers, people love to the best that they have learned. But once you see the light, she says, afterwards, you just see the love of God everywhere. And she's amazed that how could she be so blind to it? Once you see it everywhere. And she's amazed that she just didn't see it throughout her life. And the reason why I'm telling the story is that I like the story, but I also like it kind of fits today's gospel for a couple reasons. One is, at the very end, Jesus says he's amazed at people's lack of faith, that they can't see it. And there's a really odd part of today's gospel where Jesus goes back to his hometown. And in his hometown, it says he can't do many miracles, that he didn't have the power to do a lot of miracles. What happened to his power? I mean, really, who took away his power? Jesus is God incarnate. God is all powerful. What do you mean God couldn't do many miracles? Doesn't that strike you as really strange? Why wouldn't God be able to do tons of miracles? And the reason why, to explain, is you have to think of it this way. Jesus does have a lot of miracles. Just last week, if you remember last week, this woman who has great faith, she just touches his prayer shawl and is healed. Jairus has a lot of faith, and he touches his Jairus' daughter, and she's resuscitated. So clearly Jesus has a lot of power, but suddenly he has none. And he has none because of the lack of faith in his hometown. And the problem is, in his hometown, they know him. They say, isn't this Jesus? We know his family. He's a tekton. That's technically what the Greek says. He's a tekton. Now, we translate it carpenter because it sounds more sophisticated, but he's basically a laborer. He's of the working class, which the working class is just a tekton. Shepherds and tektons. They're just one class above beggars. That was hard manual labor. And so the people, when they hear about Jesus, we know his family. They're of the lower class. They're tektons. They're workers. And they're not impressed. And the Gospel of Mark keeps hitting this idea that if you want to have a spirituality, you have to have a spirituality of the ordinary. Finding God in the ordinariness of life. If you have this love of the grandiose and you want to see God in really big signs, you'll be the one that's missing him. God is around us, but we're looking for great displays. If you're looking for, a religious leader with big robes and all that other stuff and big titles and fireworks, in the Gospel of Mark, you're going to miss the presence of Christ. Christ is found in the ordinary places of life. But the people in his hometown, they just see him as part of the lower class. Now, what I think is kind of funny is the Gospel of Matthew slightly cleans this up, and they'll say, well, he was son of a tekton. But the Gospel of Mark is making it, no, Jesus is of the low class, the hard working class. And so the people can't believe that that can't be God. That, you got to have sophistication. And it's this whole idea of having the spirituality of the ordinary. In the spirituality of the ordinary, if you have faith, I like this. Prayer, if you have the spirituality of the ordinary, is that you pray so that, okay, let me back up, sorry. A lot of people, this drives me up the wall. A lot of people think prayer is just, God, give me this, give me a full head of hair, God, give me that, like intercessory prayer, which is true, that's prayer. But by Catholic belief, that's actually considered a lower form of prayer. Yes, necessary, we pray for things, but the reason why you pray is really not so God appears to you. Maybe like the woman who had the near-death experience, God is always present everywhere. God is immersing you with love. We pray and pray and pray so that our eyes are awake so that we can see God. It's not trying to wake up God and get God's attention. We pray and pray and pray so that we awake to see the presence of God everywhere. That's what the woman who had the near-death experience, in front of the light, she realizes, I was the one that was blind. God was always around me. The love, I was just poured in it. And I was the one that was blind. So for us, we pray and pray that we awaken to the spirituality of the ordinary. We can see the love of God all around. And not even, the horrors of a concentration camp can diminish it. And so Jesus says he's amazed at their lack of faith. And I just want to explain this because people confuse faith and belief. Faith and belief are two different things. Faith, if you actually translate the word, in Greek, it would mean like trust. And I mention this because atheists always say, faith is believing in things without evidence. That's not what the Greek word is. That's called ignorance. Faith technically is trust in a relationship. And like if you're ever arguing with atheists, like, pick it up. You two are married, aren't you? Because you're awful close together, I'm guessing. Like, you have to have faith in your love. Yeah, like, how do you exist in a marriage without some faith that, yes, the other person loves you? And you could have evidence. But people are very sneaky. At one point, if the marriage is going to work, you're going to have faith in it. Faith is actually this trust in a relationship. So we have faith that we have this trust that we are in a relationship with God. The word religion really comes from the word that basically means relationship. Faith is this relationship with God. And he's amazed that these people they claim to be religious, but they have no faith. What they have is belief. Belief is your ideas. Now, beliefs aren't bad. We're about to recite the creed of our belief. But belief is like we believe in a Trinity. Does that make sense? So the people of his hometown, they have belief. They know their catechism. But they have no relationship with God. That's what Jesus is amazed with. You know, the woman last week, or Jairus, they had faith. And it's your faith that saves you. It's this relationship with God that allows these miracles to happen. So Jesus will say really odd things. He'll say, your faith healed you. Your relationship with God healed you. Or sometimes, like, let's say, let's pick on somebody like Sean. Sean has no faith. But I know I'd like to pick on your dad. Maybe Sean has no faith, but sometimes Jesus heals people and then says, their faith healed you. So really it's our faith, our relationship with God that should be this overflow of really miracles happening in Meridian and Eagle because we're in this relationship with God. But Jesus shows up to his hometown, and yeah, they have all the correct beliefs. They believe in the Messiah, they believe in God, but they really have no relationship with God. They want the big, showy power. They don't want to see anything of God being surrounded all around them. And to be honest, I find Americans, as much as I love America, I really do, American in religion, if you look at like the televangelists, they're always looking for the God of fireworks. But what if, like the woman who had the near-death experience, maybe her whole life is immersed in the love of God? And the reason why we pray and pray and pray, that like the old woman who had the near-death experience, we're the ones who want to wake up and see the presence of God all around us. That's the relationship we want to grow in. Not looking for God in big, flashy displays, but seeing that our whole life, in one way or another, has always been immersed in God. And I truly believe, only because I believe when we die and we're before the light of Christ, the light of the world, God will unfold our lives and we'll see that the whole time, God was always present in our lives. We're the ones who are blind to